bad walks can be the reason for your dog being reactive, having zoomies all the time, going crazy in the evening, biting you, jumping up, and all these things. So there are 5 things to consider to make your walks an actual enrichment experience and to have your dog enjoy them, and you as well. Especially the last one, so stay with me. Point number 1, the walks are too fast. So your dog doesn't have enough time to sniff, to explore, and to process everything that he sees or hears or feels. And that can lead to just system overload in the brain, and that's when we see jumping and biting and running and going crazy, right? That's the moment when you cannot get through to your dog any longer. So see if your walks are too fast, maybe, or if your dog has enough time to sniff and just be a dog. And if you see your dog struggling to keep up or trying to run in front of you, sniff, and then you're passed again and your dog has to keep up again and all these things, or you see your dog pulling all the time, try to take out some of the speed and slow down considerably. The next point is the leash might be too short, or you have too many restrictions and too many rules in place that your dog has to follow, and you have to be adamant about them all the time. So for example, you want your dog to constantly stay behind you, you want your dog to not look at other dogs or not pee somewhere or whatever. Those are all restrictions, and they can be just pressure building. So your dog builds up pressure and pressure and pressure, and then he has to explode because the pressure has to go somewhere, right? And if you want to know what I mean with a long enough leash, check out the description. There is a link there. You can get a long enough leash there. But the same is for us. If we have too many restrictions, we give up at some point because we cannot follow them all. And it's the same thing for our dogs. So if you have an area where all those restrictions are necessary, switch up the area, alright? But we will get to the area a little bit later. Same as the walks can be too fast, they can also be too long. So again, this depends on the area and it depends on what your dog is doing. But if you take a walk that would normally take 30 minutes to walk through, it can take your dog an hour to check out all the interesting sniffing spots and all the interesting wildlife things that he can watch and all of these things. So again, if you see your dog going crazy, especially in the evening, try shortening the length of your walk and take more time walking the route. Alright? And now it gets really tricky. We are back at the area. You might be walking in the wrong area to begin with. So there are areas where you have to be alert all the time. You have to watch your dog. You have to be aware of who passes by you. Where are the gardens where the dogs bark at the fence? Where are the other dogs walking? Is there a busy street? Are there any things that your dog might be scared of or might react to or. So there are areas that require more concentration from you and from your dog. And these are fine for training if you are already at a point where you can train with your dog in such a situation. But the walks there might be really short. You might be done in 10 minutes or even 5 minutes or however long you can make a training session with your dog to still stay concentrated and to still have your dog stay concentrated as well. And if you see your dog not being able to concentrate any longer, not to follow rules, not to succeed with whatever you want to see from your dog, the environment might be too tricky. So take your dog out of the environment and walk somewhere in nature. Even if that's just for a relaxation period of time. So you take a week or two to just walk in quiet environments so your dog and yourself can do some stress relief. Alright? And the last point, and this is a red flag. This is something that tells you that you are making things too difficult. you have to use corrections. You only have to use corrections if your dog makes mistakes, and your dog only makes mistakes if the situations are too tricky for your dog. And remember, your dog doesn't choose them, you choose them. So you can choose to set up your dog for success. You can teach your dog beforehand what you want to see in specific situations, and you can teach that in a quiet environment and make it more tricky while you progress. If you have to use corrections, and again, even if your dog messes up, you don't have to use corrections. You can just take your dog out of the situation, reassess, and start fresh. But if you see yourself in situations where you cannot reward your dog for doing something right, and you would only have to correct your dog for constantly doing something wrong, the situation is just too tricky. And if you want to know how you can teach your dog to stop going at other dogs, watch this.